All right, let's dive into the world of bamboo cutting boards. You've sent us a really interesting mix of articles and product info.
Yeah.
So it seems like you're trying to find a cutting board that's like good for the planet, but also, can handle anything you throw at it.
It's a great goal to have. And honestly, it's amazing how much there is to learn about something as like basic as a cutting board when you really start digging into it.
Right. Like I knew bamboo was trendy, but some of the stuff I read in these sources blew my mind. For example, do you know bamboo can be even harder than maple?
It's true.
I always thought hardwood was like the gold standard for cutting surfaces.
Yeah, it's a common assumption.
It is.
But yeah, bamboo can actually be even harder than maple, and it all comes down to its structure.
Okay.
Those fibers in bamboo are packed so densely, it's like they have natural reinforcement, which gives it this crazy strength and resilience.
So it's not just like about being hard, it's about how those fibers are like arranged, right?
Precise.
Okay, that makes way more sense. But what about the sustainability angle? The source mentions bamboo is a rapidly renewable resource, and I've got to admit, I don't really know what that means in practice.
Right, so that's where the whole bamboo grows like a weed comparison comes in, but
Right.
like in a good way,
Yeah.
Compared to hardwoods, bamboo grows incredibly fast. I mean, we're talking some species shooting up several feet in a single day.
Whoa, that's kind of scary,
It
actually.
is pretty wild. And that rapid growth cycle means that bamboo absorbs more CO2 over its lifespan.
Oh, interesting.
So it's acting as a carbon sink, which is a big win for the planet.
So it's like a win-win, right?
Exactly.
You get a cutting board that's going to last, but you're also reducing your impact on the environment.
Exactly. You get it.
Okay. I'm convinced, but even the toughest materials need some TLC, right?
Absolutely.
The source was really adamant about the never soak rule for bamboo cutting boards, and honestly, that threw me off.
Yeah, I can see why.
I'm so used to just tossing my plastic cutting board in the dishwasher.
Right.
So why is bamboo so different?
It's all about how bamboo reacts to water. So remember those densely packed fibers we talked about?
Yeah.
Those same fibers make bamboo more porous than hardwoods. So if you soak it for too long, the water gets way down deep inside.
Oh.
And that can lead to warping, cracking, even splitting.
Okay, I can totally picture that.
Like the board just gets waterlogged, loses all its structural integrity.
And nobody wants a wobbly cutting board.
Exactly. Speaking of keeping your board in tip-top shape, we should probably talk about oiling.
Yeah, okay.
Because apparently even cutting boards need a spa day every now and then.
Right. The source made it sound so fancy. Like once a month, you pamper your board with a little food-grade mineral oil or beeswax. They mentioned that as an option, too.
Either one works.
But for someone like me who's used to the dishwasher, what's the actual difference between those two?
It's a good question. So both mineral oil and beeswax will protect your board, but they have slightly different finishes. Mineral oil is easy to find, pretty affordable, and it gives a more natural look.
Got it.
Beeswax gives it more of a sheen, like a subtle shine, and it's a bit more water resistant, but it can be pricier.
So it's like choosing between a matte or glossy finish, like if you were buying a piece of furniture or something.
Exactly.
Got
It
it.
comes down to personal preference.
Okay.
Now, speaking of things that might surprise you about bamboo boards.
The source talked about some myths about bamboo cutting boards,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit I totally believed some of these.
Like what?
Like, I always thought bamboo was worse about bacteria than plastic,
Interesting.
but apparently that's not true at all.
It's a super common misconception. People see all those little pores in bamboo and they think bacteria city.
Right.
But remember those antimicrobial properties we talked about?
Yeah.
Bamboo's got its own defenses.
Okay, so it's not just sitting there soaking up bacteria like a sponge.
Nope, not at all. In fact, it's actually better than plastic at resisting bacteria because plastic gets all these tiny cuts, and those can trap bacteria.
So bamboo's got its own little force field against bacteria, basically.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. Okay, another one I believed. Bamboo dulls your knives faster because it's so hard.
Ah, yeah, that's another one that trips people up.
It makes sense, though, right?
Seems logical, but it all comes back to the structure of those bamboo fibers. They're tough, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they also have some give to them, which actually helps keep your knives sharper for longer.
So it's like strong, but not like abrasive.
Exactly. It's like a good workout for your knives. Keeps them in shape.
Okay, so bamboo boards are durable, they're good for the planet, they're surprisingly hygienic, but then the source mentioned they're getting really popular with chefs.
Oh yeah, professional kitchens are using bamboo more and more these days.
So what's the deal with that? Are chefs just like really into sustainability all of a sudden?
Well, that's definitely part of it, but honestly, professional kitchens are like the ultimate test for a cutting board.
Right, they're using them constantly.
Exactly. Constant use, heavy chopping, tons of washing.
So if a cutting board can survive in that environment, it must be pretty tough.
You got it. That's why a lot of chefs are choosing bamboo.
That makes a lot of sense. But are there any downsides, like anything a chef or even just like a regular person at home should be aware of?
One thing is that bamboo, even though it's really hard, it can still show knife marks over time.
Oh, really? I thought it was supposed to be super durable.
It is. But those marks are usually just on the surface.
Okay, so it's more of a cosmetic thing.
Exactly. It doesn't usually affect how the board works.
That's good to know. I'd rather have a board that looks a little beat up than one that falls apart after a few months.
Absolutely.
So for our listener who's now probably thinking, okay, I want a bamboo cutting board, but where do I start? The source gave some good tips on what to look for when you're shopping.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, they said to make sure you're getting a food-grade bamboo board. And I'll be honest, I'm not totally sure what that means.
Right, so food grade basically means that the board has been treated with oils and finishes that are safe for contact with food.
Okay, so it's not going to leach weird chemicals into my food.
Exactly. That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
You'll usually see a label or certification that says food grade, so just double check for that.
Got it. I'll definitely be looking for that from now on. The source also talked about the importance of size, thickness, grade, all that good stuff.
Yeah, those are all super important factors to consider.
But it seems like there are so many options.
There are, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's really about how you plan to use the board.
Okay, so like if I do a lot of meal prep, I might want a bigger board.
Exactly. Lots of chopping space.
Right, but if I have a tiny kitchen, maybe I need something smaller.
Makes sense. Or maybe you're like me and you just get sucked in by all the gadgets.
Oh, tell me about it.
Some of those boards have built-in graters and stuff. It's wild.
I know, right? I kind of want one now.
They are pretty cool, I'll give you that.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a bamboo cutting board out there for everyone.
Absolutely, there really is.
But what about those gotchas you mentioned earlier? Like, what should people watch out for when they're shopping so they don't end up with a dud?
Oh yeah, good point. So, first thing, watch out for boards that are super thin.
Okay.
They might look sleek and all, especially if you need something that's easy to store.
Right.
But remember, bamboo is porous.
Yeah.
A thin board is going to be way more likely to warp or crack, even if you're, like, super careful about not soaking it.
That makes sense. It's like you want something with a bit of heft to it.
Exactly. I'd say, as a general rule of thumb, go for at least 3/4 of an inch thick.
Okay, got it. What about those multi-piece sets? I saw some of those in the source. They look kind of handy.
Yeah, those can be nice.
But is there anything tricky about those?
I mean, they could be great if you, like, want separate boards for different things.
Right, like one for meat, one for veggies.
Exactly. Or maybe a small one for cheese and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But just make sure all the boards in the set are a decent thickness.
Okay.
And double check that they're all labeled as food grade. You don't want to end up with one random board that's not safe for food.
Good point. It's easy to get caught up in all the different options and forget to check the basics.
For sure. And the other thing is, think about how much space you actually have.
Right, because those sets can take up a lot of room.
Exactly. Sometimes one really good, solid cutting board is all you need.
Totally. Okay, so for our listener who's now like a bamboo cutting board expert, what's the most important thing to remember when they're actually shopping for one?
Honestly, I'd say just be mindful of your own needs and habits in the kitchen.
Okay, so like how often do I cook? What kind of space do I have?
Exactly. And don't be afraid to spend a little extra for a really good quality board. It's worth it.
Right, because it's going to last longer in the long run.
Exactly. A well-made bamboo cutting board, if you take care of it, it can last for years, even decades.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's an investment in your kitchen, but also in the planet, which is kind of cool.
Exactly. And it just goes to show, even something as basic as a cutting board can be pretty interesting when you really get into it.
Totally. I mean, we've been talking about cutting boards for like a while now, and I'm still learning new stuff.
Right. It's like a whole world of kitchen geekery that I never knew existed.
I know, right? It's kind of exciting.
It is.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of bamboo cutting boards. We covered a lot today.
We did. Sustainability, durability, bacteria-busting powers, even a little peek into the future with those smart cutting boards.
Oh, yeah. Who knows what kind of crazy cutting board tech they'll come up with next.
Right, maybe a cutting board that gives you cooking lessons.
Or one that chops the vegetables for you. That'd be amazing.
Now that's the dream.
Right. Okay, I'm getting carried away now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, happy cooking.
At nourishingtapestry.store we have a large range of bamboo cutting boards. Thanks for watching. Check us out at nourishingtapestry.store. Like, subscribe.